What up, homies? Do you like indie games? I like indie games. But you've probably noticed that most indie game devs don't have loads of cash sitting on their desk just waiting to be splurged on marketing campaigns. So, as a player in between the upcoming tab on Steam, the Twitter feed and every other gaming magazine's new releases post, it is sometimes kinda hard to find the good stuff. You know, the creative works of love and art that can easily be looked over because AAA game number 969 is blasting their marketing claims through your YouTube ads, or the billboard outside your window, or the ad campaigns on your social media poison of choice. Number must go up, after all. So I thought to myself, I'll do my part. I'll have a look at 5 to 10 new indie game releases per month and make a video about them. So in case you haven't been able to keep up with the indie games of September or want to get some random but passionate guy on the internet's opinion on a game you've had your eyes on, welcome to the last month of indie gaming series. Let's take 30 seconds to establish a baseline so you know how many grains of salt you should take my thoughts with. These aren't full-blown journalistic reviews. I won't go into technical details or graphics quality analysis. Instead, I'll check for gameplay loop, vibes, replay value, story, and the ability to pick up and appreciate the game after an exhausting day. On screen, you can see my overall rating for a couple of games and other media. I tried to make use of the entire 0 to 10 scale. A 5 out of 10 for me is a good game, and an 8 out of 10 is exceptional. Those last 2 points are reserved for games that really affect me and make me wonder what a tattoo of them could look like. One last disclaimer, at the time of recording this channel has 45 subs, so obviously nothing here is sponsored. I am as independent as the developer brothers and sisters whose games we look at. Also, check out the timestamps if you want to skip to a specific game. First game on the list is Chants of Sennaar. It's a stylized puzzle game with an interesting gameplay mechanic that ties in perfectly with the actual story. We are a nameless person that is supposed to ascend a large tower. This tower is inhabited by different societies that coexist but don't interact because these guys don't speak each other's languages, and that is where we come into play. Throughout the game we analyze their sign systems, decipher vocabulary, grammar and meaning. It's all based on logic, derivation and linguistics. So I realized that the word linguistics probably doesn't exactly trigger your gaming funny bone, but the actual gameplay of working out a language bit by bit is really satisfying. For example, you find a plaque that depicts some people praying to the sun, and underneath there are some symbols. 2 of those look like a L with a diamond shape at the top. A little further down the path you find another plaque that has similar symbols written on it, except there are 2 arrows instead of a diamond. This plaque also depicts some dudes with swords in hand, so you bust out your notebook, put on your detective drip and deduce that the L signifies a person, and the other shapes further define this person as religious or as a warrior. Also, 2 of the same sign together turn a single person into a group of people. Now multiply this experience by around 30 to 40 characters per language and 5 languages that explore different sign systems and grammar and that you have to cross-reference and intertranslate, and you got yourself a game. There is also a stealth aspect to this game. Some areas or situations demand a stealthy approach in which you sneak around ledges or hide in shadows waiting for an opening to advance. Some reviews mention that they don't like these sections, but I think they're fine, and maybe even act as some form of palate cleanser in between figuring out sentence structure and vocabulary. Don't expect some solid Snake type shit though, it mostly comes down to timing and pattern recognition. Like, you know, in languages? Think about that. Chants of Sennaar obviously is a very stylized game with a limited but deliberate color palette that distinguishes the different societies. Predefined camera angles turn this into a rather cinematic experience, and the very atmospheric ambient sounds of your footsteps on stone, the mumbling of people and all the other sounds of the tower and its natural environment, paired with the unintrusive instrumental soundtrack, make immersion very easy. And that's in spite of the fact that you keep opening and closing your notebook to reference back to something. All in all, Chants of Sennaar looks good and it sounds good. Minimalism is at its core, so you won't be blown out of the water by your eyes and ears, but why would you want that? You are here to engage your brain into puzzle mode. The story is good. The game won't challenge your view of the world with intensely new ideas or revelation, but again, it also doesn't want to, or what would be even worse, try and fail to do that. Your interaction with the different peoples is interesting and engaging. Every society has a different interpretation of their role in the tower's hierarchy, and they value something distinctly their own, whether it's religion, duty, or creative expression. This all comes together in a satisfying ending, at least it does in the true ending which I got to see. It's also quite intriguing to learn how different worldviews influence certain vocabulary. For example, the way the religious people refer to themselves and the corresponding words that the warriors have for them, which I obviously won't spoil here. What stood out the most to me is the act of reconnecting the different societies. From time to time, you find some McDonald's self-serving looking tablets which act as quick travel spots. These also have a short message tab in which a person of one tribe wants to slide into the DMs of another person. This is where you get to apply all the things you learned, because you have to be the mediator and translate their messages, grammar, sentence structure and all. This is the real nerdy good stuff, and you are rewarded with more story bits as well as actual changes within the tower itself, because you start reconnecting the societies. It's cool. This is a puzzle game about language acquisition, so to state the obvious, there won't be much replay value for most of you. It's an experience which I fully recommend, but you probably won't play this twice unless you want to 100% this game. It took me around 8 hours to complete my playthrough, and even though I played this in 2 long sessions, I don't think you will have any problem picking this game up where you left off over the course of multiple shorter sessions. You can always reference back to your notes on different characters, and the ease of immersion through its relaxed vibes makes this very easy to get in after a long day. One last remark. This game is available in 14 languages, so chances are that there is a language that you might be more comfortable with if you feel intimidated to play this in English. Chants of Sennaar is a very good game. If you like puzzle games or are even slightly interested in languages, this is a no-brainer. Get it? No-brainer? Anyways, I give this a very good 7 out of 10, and because I really like the whole idea, concept and execution, I add on one of my personal extra points, so 8 out of 10 it is. If you are still on the fence and want to get a closer look at the actual gameplay, check out my Let's Play series. There's a link to the first episode in the video description. Next up, Astrea 6-sided oracles. This is a deck building roguelike that doesn't actually use cards, but dice. So in addition to building your dice deck, you also get the ability to build your individual dice by upgrading their different sides. You use these dice in turn-based fights against corrupted enemies that you have to purify in typical roguelike fashion. Start up a run, fight your way through several multiple-choice gauntlets and bosses, reap the rewards that carry over throughout your progression, and get right back into another run. Astrea has a bunch of cool mechanics that have the potential to keep this game entertaining for a very long time. First of all, you've got a dual-type damage system, purification and corruption. Corrupted enemies need to be brought down through purification damage, and they themselves deal corruption damage to us in turn. But it doesn't stay this clear-cut, because most of our dice also have corruption damage on them. We decide whether we want to take that damage ourselves and with that potentially unlock special virtue abilities that are only accessible once we reach certain health point thresholds, or if we want to deal the corruption damage onto our enemies, thereby slightly healing and over-corrupting them, which in turn causes other effects. You can probably already tell that there's a lot of strategy and numbers work in here, even though the core idea of dice rolling obviously screams luck-based gameplay at first glance. The next level of gameplay depth are the dice themselves. They are categorized into safe, balanced and risky dice, and these all have different combinations of damage types, buffs and abilities on their 6 faces. There are also a million different abilities: pure damage, reroll a die, shields, empower, AoE damage, copy a die, transform corruption to purification damage. And this is just the very basic stuff that you get to see on your first run with the first of 6 unlockable characters, which also have dice and ability unlocks within their individual leveling systems. Later dice and characters have so many hyper-specialized abilities that I won't even try to list them. Let's just say there's a Hammerhead Shark character that has an ability that deals as much purification damage as you have individual die in your deck that have the word Shark in their name. Now add on to that the ability to upgrade dice within a run, pick up sentinels that fight alongside you, also with their own specialized die, obviously, and different balanced and risky meta buffs that individualize each and every single run, and you might get an idea of the gameplay loop and its immense depth. So I've popped off on the gameplay and, to be honest, still haven't covered it all. So I will combine my thoughts on vibe and story into one. The game looks and feels cool. The Astro-themed presentation in its lovingly detailed hand-drawn art style for characters, environment, the different mechanics and UI elements works very well. This is further enhanced by the very vibey soundtrack and effects. Together, these make for a distinguished and memorable experience. The story, though, isn't much to write home about. An ominous corruption force has taken over the once peaceful universe, and we are one of 6 special heroes to purify the corruption and save the day. You've seen this. To be fair, I haven't completed the game by succeeding with every one of the 6 characters, so maybe there is a surprise hidden in the end. I suspect that you probably won't pick this game up because of its stellar story. The complex gameplay loop is the unique selling point here. Okay, do I have to state the obvious? This game has crazy amounts of replay value. In 12 hours, I have unlocked 5 of the 6 characters, succeeded with 2 of them and still haven't even seen, let alone understood a fraction of the different abilities, combinations and buffs. If you like roguelikes, strategy games and min-maxing your deck on the fly, you will be able to juice hours upon hours out of this game. Another great thing? This game saves your progress within a run and you can pick it right back up where you were. A single run takes about an hour and progress is pretty fast, so you can get your unlock and completionist endorphins in even if you have limited time in your day. There's also 80 achievements, so if you really want to get your grind on, you can. Why there are exactly 80 achievements though, and not a number, dividable by 6 like 78 or 84, I can't get my pattern-addicted mind around. Dev homie, please fix. Astrea 6-Sided Oracles is a great game. It's an engaging roguelike that demands your attention because the amount of randomness that happens within a run doesn't allow autopilot mode. You gotta think and strategize on your feet and get your math on, but it never gets so complicated that it's frustrating. Personally, I'm not a huge connoisseur of roguelikes, but I like strategy, so this game gets a solid 7 out of 10 from me. If you are into roguelikes and min-maxing, this will easily be an 8 or a 9 for you. If you want to experience the gameplay, look and feel more in-depth, you can get the demo on Steam. I also have a 1 hour off video on my channel in which I play one run with the second unlockable character, that Hammerhead Shark that I mentioned earlier. It's linked in the description if you want to check it out. know, sometimes you don't want to strategize and puzzle in your game time, and instead, just return to Monkey. So if you want to get your pew-pew on, I've got AK-xolotl for you on this list. This is your classic bullet hell twin-stick shooter with roguelike elements, boss fights, upgrades, and even a weird cousin of Pokemon in the mix. We are an axolotl, and we're just chilling with the homies by the campfire when some random tentacle monsters kidnap everyone else but us. That's not cool, but what's even worse is that they also took our food supplies. So obviously we took that personally and started blasting. The core gameplay loop is pretty obvious. Start up a run with your basic weapon and skill layout, fight through various screens filled with all kinds of animal enemies, get weapon and passive skill upgrades, and multiple choice your way to the next boss. Kill that guy and off to the next area, or in this case, biome. All throughout, you gain various kinds of currency to unlock stuff in your base with. As with any roguelike, the devil is in the details. First of all, you got your somewhat standard weapon choices. Pistols, rifles, shotguns, snipers, SMGs, and for that extra bit of flavor sauce, you also got explosive, melee, and laser weapons. So you don't have to be an AK-xolotl, you can also be an Uzi-xolotl, or a pistol akimbo-lotl. The mechanic that sets this game apart is your AK-xolotl farm. While in a run, you might come across a room with a new axolotl tadpole, which you can pick up and send off to your base. As far as I experienced, these are just cosmetic variations, so you can slaughter goons in your favorite color combination. Most of your time and resources in the hub you will spend on nurturing and upgrading these guys. They start out as babies, you take care of them by changing their rainbow diapers or cleaning them, and thus raise their happiness level. Once that's filled up, they become teenagers and finally grown-ups. You also feed them, and depending on what food you prepare at the cookpot, you can specialize your gang. There's main meals that define stats and passive skills, and there's desserts that provide active abilities. In order to be able to cook these, you have to gather the necessary ingredients which are locked into the different biomes. If you need honey, you need to get to the third biome and hope for a food ingredient room to get a more significant amount. Unfortunately, the food system seems to be a little bit skewed to later biomes. In my 7 hours, I've made it into the 4th biome 2 or 3 times and still wasn't able to craft any recipe other than the 3 meals and 2 desserts that you start with. Also, with 7 recipes in the food and dessert category respectively, there isn't all that much to choose from, and here's my biggest gripe, the more advanced meals don't really seem all that cool, so why bother? Finally, and that is arguably the most important upgrade, you can feed your new axolotls cookies, and by doing so, specialize them to become proficient in one specific weapon class, so they deal more damage per pew. So all in all, you have 3 different specialization branches and 81 axolotl designs that you can mix and match. So if one of my mathematician homies wants to go ahead and do the numbers on the overall combination possibilities, put that stuff in the comments, though I'll need you to prove your calculation method. This ain't the Wild West. Back to topic. Let's talk unlockables. This is a roguelike after all. After your first couple of runs, you will unlock several shops in your base. Here you can buy either items or actual weapons and thereby unlock them to be droppable within new runs. There's a bunch of items and weapons that you can spend your limited cash on, so if you want to sport that ray gun, the P90 and the Elven armor, you got your work cut out for you. There isn't endless amounts of grind to unlock everything, but you also won't be Terminate Total within an hour. Finally, there is the somewhat sinister way to upgrade several passive stats like overall damage, reload time, or the chance of running into a health regeneration room within further runs. You do that by visiting this shady fellow, who definitely never heard of Child Protective Services. You pay this guy with the happiness of your axolotls, which you have to slurp out of them in a ritualistic and totally not cruel way. That will also stun them for a couple of turns. After all that, I just realized that I haven't talked about the actual gameplay, you know, the shooting, the dodging, the boss fights. Well, there's shooting with 2 different weapon slots, there's bullet hell elements of dodging and weaving in between shots and behind cover, and there's boss fights that are noticeably harder than the normal enemies, but once you memorize their patterns, it's really only a matter of execution. It all feels snappy and responsive. If you fuck up, you know it's your own fault. Okay, let's speed this up. You've seen the gameplay and the pixel art style. The game looks good. The sprites for different enemies, weapons and items are all well put together, and there is a definite creative vibe and overarching idea behind all of it. Obviously, it's not as impressive as other pixel art games, but for the sake of visual clarity in the game where you need to see what's coming at you, it works very well. The story? Well, gun go brr. The same roguelike characteristics apply to replay and pickup ability. The game is designed to pick it up quickly and get into a run, upgrade some stuff and repeat. I can see the upgrades as a motivating factor to strive for, but maybe the different axolotls not so much. At one point you'll have the combination that you were looking for, do some runs with that and maybe try out a new style. I don't know that I'll go ahead and grind out all the different chromas though. The dev homies already announced that they'll release further seasonal axolotls in the future, so if you love filling out your Pokédex, you'll have content to scratch that itch. These additions are also supposed to include new biomes, mechanics and upgrades. AK-xolotl is a cool game to spend your time on. It's challenging enough to keep you engaged and progress is steady, so you always feel that you've actually achieved something even though you just died on the third screen. There's definite room for improvement in the upgrading and food department. I found myself kind of ignoring that aspect and just grinding out the shop unlocks instead. If you are looking for a roguelike with a complex skill tree or a more meaningful story, you are better off with a different game. This doesn't compare to games like Hades or Enter the Gungeon, and you won't be in here for hundreds of hours, but it's an easy choice for those nights where you scroll up and down your Steam library and can't decide what to do. In the end, I'd put AK-xolotl at a 5.5. Roguelikes at their core are dependent on variety and depth to keep you playing, and most of the variety in this game stems from different axolotl skins that, don't have actual gameplay impact. It's a bit too shallow to compete with the big guys, but if you're craving for an axolotl-sized portion, it might suit you. As an appetizer, you could also check out my 1 hour off video. Snack that link in the description, and I'm going to stop with the food analogies now. Okay, back to strategy and using your brain at game time. Next on the list is Spirited Thief. This is a turn-based stealth heist game. I hear it's pretty similar to Invisible Ink, but since I never played that game, I'm just gonna describe it as a pixelated love child of XCOM and Desperados, and hope that their representative fan bases don't drag me in front of the RGB-lit Game Accord. In Spirited Thief, we play as the thief Eli and his spirit companion Trin. They have a rough time with the Thieves Guild because those guys are bigoted towards spirits, so we have to prove ourselves. We do that by infiltrating all sorts of buildings, scouting patrol patterns, hidden compartments and treasure, then sneaking in and yoinking their shit before finally getting out again. I'll call it right now, this game deserves way more recognition than it apparently gets at the moment, sitting at 44 Steam reviews. If you ever played or saw XCOM and Desperados, you'll know what to expect from the gameplay. You'll arrive at a given map, they are all handcrafted by the way, no procedural generation, and you'll get a briefing about your primary yoinkage target. There's also bonus optional targets and most of the time some secret loot to find as well. First thing you do is immediately what sets this game apart. There's a dedicated scouting phase, and that is where the spirit character Trin comes into play. She's a ghost and can teleport through windows or keyholes. So it's her task to scout out the whole location without being spotted by the guards. Primarily, she needs to find the target objective, but she also has to deactivate magic doors, look for secrets and locate all the different keys you'll need and the guards that carry them. Trin also has 2 active abilities. Early on, you can mark up to 3 guards so they are always visible through the fog of war, and you can also put a sleep spell on some of them, so they, sleep for the first couple of turns. The only thing Trin can't do is physically touch stuff and snatch it herself. That is Eli's job. Once the scouting phase is over, you'll switch character and have to apply whatever knowledge you gained to the actual map. So the first thing you'll do is zoom out and plan a route that lets you smash and grab the maximum amount of loot. Some of that is carried by guards, so you'll have to pickpocket them. Once that's done, it's time to enter the place and sneak around as sneakily as possible. Walking through the front door also starts an alarm that intensifies every turn and wakes up sleeping guards step by step. Take too long and everyone is full on Metal Gear Solid yellow alert mode. The turn-based nature of Spirited Thieves gives this a very satisfying strategic energy. You can plan your 2 movement points, available characters and actions, but always have to be aware of patrol patterns and traps. If guards are in your field of view or were previously marked by Trin, you can see where they will walk to and what direction they'll look in on their turn. Otherwise, you'll spot some footprints in the fog of war and at least get an idea of where enemies are. Obviously, you don't want to get spotted, because unless you've got a second guy in place or are positioned correctly, you can't just walk up to a guard that sees you and boink him to death with CQC. There's no fallback to all reliable "if no one is alive, no one can see me" here. The only failsafe you have is the ability to re-roll a turn, but you can only do that 3 times per run. After that, it's back to the beginning and try again. A heist is successful if you manage to steal the target objective and make it to the designated exit with all active team members. You'll have more homies than just Eli throughout the game. How you get to the exit and what else you steal is up to you. If you don't want me to drag you in front of the RGB-lit gamer court though, you will of course aim to empty every chest, every secret loot stash and pocket. Let me tell you, this game ramps up in difficulty level pretty fast. It's never impossible or unfair, and if you fail something you always know that it's because you didn't pay attention or acted in a rush. But while it took me around 3 hours to get through the first 5 missions, I spent 2 hours alone at mission 6. Until I realized I was too tired that day and was better off trying again when my head wasn't in sleep mode. Spirited Thief has a very distinct pixel art style that's part gloomy and at the same time lighthearted. That's a weird combination of words, I know, but it works. You could also apply the same sentiment to the story. There's lighthearted talk between the different companions, and even though the setting of a corrupt and unfair thieves guild and of robbing to survive is somewhat grim, it's never not fun. To be fair, I have not finished the game yet, so if there's a big "everyone you care about fucking dies" twist at the end, then I don't know about it and don't you dare spoil it in the comments. I still got the Game Accord homies on speed dial. Let's put it this way. For now, I've got enough trust and faith in the writing that I don't expect a massive letdown. There's only one small gripe that I have with the presentation of the story. There is no hub or home base, like for example in XCOM. Once you finish a mission, you might get some dialogue between your companions, and after that, you are immediately confronted with the briefing for the next heist mission, and all you can do is get right back into scout mode with Trin. It feels like I don't really get time with these characters. They are on the mission and I'm just along for the ride, but this train won't slow down enough to enjoy the view or take a breather. At times, I felt a bit rushed, since I don't get to decide when to start the next mission. The only thing I decide is whether I want to play that mission right now or, quit the game. I think some time off with the homies would be helpful, since that would allow my brain to slow down a bit and not immediately Sisyphus-style switch from the final strategic move of last mission to the first strategic move of the next one. Some final thoughts on the visual presentation. If you have a look at the screenshots on their Steam page, Spirited Thief seems like it might be very busy and suffer from visual clarity problems, but as far as I've experienced, that really isn't the case. Visual clarity is massively important in a turn-based strategy stealth game, and I've never had a problem with that. Well, not quite. Early on, you get a second character to the heist part, Besk. Him and Eli are both clad in pure brown clothes, and I might have moved one character when I actually wanted to move the other one before. Other than that though, once you learn what the information on screen actually means, you always know what's happening. This time I can actually speak from experience, since I didn't binge this game in a day. Actually, I played it early on in October, and between the Steam Next Fest and like a million other new releases that wanted to be recorded, I only picked Spirited Thief back up around 20 days later. I had no problem to reacquaint myself with the mechanics and was immediately back into a new mission. So you can definitely pick this up whenever and strategize away. I don't know if there's all that much replay value here. There are light RPG elements and you can customize your skill build and team setup, but don't expect a massive skill tree with all sorts of options. The game has a heavy focus on its story and you won't complete the 3 acts in a matter of 10 or even 20 hours. But once that's done, you will probably put it on your success pile and move on. For the low price point of $15 at the moment though, I don't see any problem with that. As I said in the beginning, I think Spirited Thief is way under-recognized. It's that hidden gem that all the gaming channels are always looking for, and I would fully recommend playing it if you even got the slightest interest in strategy and stealth games. I give this game a 7.5 out of 10 and hope that it gets the recognition it deserves. It doesn't have to stay a hidden gem in a sneakily hidden treasure chest in the big-ass Steam mansion. Speedrun tactics. All you have to do is play this mission 3 times. Let's start this one off properly. Cocoon is my indie game of the month for September 23. It's an extremely vibey and atmospheric puzzle game that revolves around the core mechanic of hopping in, out of and in between parallel worlds that are contained within orbs which we also carry around. We play as this insect moth-looking dude and spawn into an arid-looking world to explore. Pretty soon, we'll run into the first puzzles, discover that we can actually leave this world to jump into another one, gather more orbs that also contain worlds, and in the end, we'll be solving puzzles by combining and arranging all of the orbs and their specific abilities. It's all very fluent, clever, and, again, maximum vibey. Puzzles are obviously front and center in this game. They start off easily enough by simple pull this here to create a bridge or activate this button so this walkway points into another direction tasks, but soon enough they revolve around the different special abilities of the orbs and the way you arrange the orbs within themselves. The pacing of this increase in difficulty feels very organic, so while at like 1.5 hours in you come to terms with the fact that you can store orbs in the overworld to pass restricting terrain within another world, 2 hours later, you arrange orbs within each other multiple levels deep so you can use one ability to activate another ability with the correct timing, so you can climb up this water tower by turning it into rock. It's all extremely rewarding and I had multiple yeah, like this moments. Okay. So we do it. This gets reflected back and in there. Oh! Yes! Holy shit, cool. Here's the kicker. We do all this by using exactly one button. Everything you do and interact with, whether it's picking up an orb, jumping in and out of a world, grabbing onto something or using a jump pad is done with the X button. Or the A button for my Xbox homies. Or the B button for my Nintendo brothers and sisters, or the spacebar for my Master Race elitists. The greatness of this game to a large part lies within this simplicity. If you run into a head-scratcher puzzle, and at one point you will, you can always fall back on this one button, which in return means you don't have to fall back on all the other buttons. Let me elaborate. My first instinct at a new challenge after the initial ideas are checked off is to go look around for new stuff, since I might have missed some clues. This game does a great job at limiting that as well, since oftentimes a specific problem is cut off from the rest of the world through elevators or walls that have to be activated. It's just you, the puzzle, and that one button. You don't have to worry about hidden secrets, a button combination you learned an hour ago and have forgotten already, or even some weird form of soft lock because you maybe haven't done something that you should have done earlier. No. This game is pure affirmation. You can do this. You can solve this puzzle, and everything you need is right here, within the orbs you have available and underneath your thumb that's resting on that one button. In a pretty abstract way, this game is about growth, and if there's one thing that we all need to grow, it's affirmation. You got this. Before I finish the philosophical section of this review, check out what happens when the game notices we are on the right path to a solution. That's You Got This in orchestral synth language. Chef's kiss. As I said before, this game's got vibes out the wazoo. There's a lot of ambient noise, like your footsteps on whatever surface you're tippity-tapping on, the sounds of flora and fauna, or technical components beeping, zapping and clinking in the area, as well as the wind passing along it all. It's all very organic and fitting. Even though we are pretty much the only thing moving through these worlds, they still feel alive and self-sufficient, if also somewhat lost and forgotten at the same time. We are just passing by. All of this is enhanced by an atmospheric soundtrack that's based on synthesizers, pads and at times an almost orchestral style. But it's an orchestra that's made up of otherworldly beings, insectoids, sentient plants and robots that are all playing the song of their people, in harmony. I can't say much else about the story. We are this insect homie and we start exploring. It's about growth and transformation, but nothing here is spelled out. There's not a single spoken or written word in this game, at least not in a language that we would understand. The story is vague and open to a lot of personal interpretation, so I'ma take the easy way out and go, you gotta experience it yourself. I've played this game in 2 sessions in a single day, so I can't really speak on how easy it is to pick up after like a day or two. Since the puzzles are as self-contained as they are, and again, you play this with one button, I'd guess it's easy to get right back in. Instead, we could look at this from another angle. If you got a lot to do and only so much game time in your evenings, then maybe play this on the weekend, because you will get sucked in and will want to continue. As with any puzzle game, the only replay value here is if you specifically enjoyed these puzzles and just want to experience them and the vibe that comes with them once more. In and of itself, this game isn't designed to be replayed over and over again. You can also get all the achievements in one playthrough. Cocoon is great. Game of the month, 8.5. Play it. I've got a 100% playthrough video on the channel if you want to get some more raw insights into the game or just don't have the time or the resources to play it yourself. It's in the description. Next up, Ugly. Ugly is another puzzle game, but this time it's a platformer. We are this weird looking guy with an alcohol problem who wakes up inside of an abandoned mansion that was or maybe still is his home. This dude is haunted by the memories of his abusive father and tries to work out what happened in his past to him and to the rest of his family. Aiding him on this quest is the special ability he has. A magical mirror that creates a mirror dimension either vertically or horizontally. By controlling your dude, we also control the dude in the mirror, and with the press of a button, we switch positions. If you liked Braid, you will like this game. It's got the same spirit of controlling and moving through reality, but here it's not based on time, but on space. Ugly explores its core mechanic of the mirror dimension very deeply. You have to pass through walls by placing the mirror in front of them and walking so far back that the mirror homie reaches the end of the wall. Then you switch position and teleport to his position. If there's a ladder on one side of the room but not on the other, you place the mirror in the middle in between and climb the ladder with your active guy, and the mirror dude will climb right along with you through the air. In later parts, you have to place the mirror on a raised platform and create a vertical mirror dimension that you have to keep falling through and switch positions right as you would hit the ground, thus floating through the air and reaching new heights. Think Portal Infinite loops. It's a pretty similar physics-based mechanic. Now, add on to that magic crystals that block the mirror guy, pink slime that prohibits teleportation, and mirror boxes that behave in the same way you do, and you might get an idea of the complexity of these mechanics. It's deep, and I'm not gonna lie, it's hard, and to be truly honest, I didn't finish this game, but there's more reasons for that than the game simply being too hard. So, first of all, I have to admit that I sometimes can get frustrated pretty easily if I feel like I'm stuck at a specific puzzle and I can't even map out an approach to the solution in my head. Fuck. At that point, most of the time, puzzling devolves into trial and error and just throwing every mechanic and combination at the wall, hoping something sticks. Let's reference back to Cocoon and that one button, where that game puts you in front of a puzzle and through its simplicity gives you the affirmation that you can find a way. Ugly constantly made me feel like an idiot. To be fair, my brain is struggling with these time and space-based puzzles, and you might have a totally different experience, so if you held back your salt shakers for now, this is where you bust them out and take everything I say with a big pinch. Still, I am stubborn enough to struggle my way through frustrating obstacles like that, and most of the time I will end up at the solution. I did make it through like 80% of the game. But this is where my second point of criticism factors in. Ugly is a weird mix of semi-open exploration and straight linearity. Throughout the game, you explore this abandoned mansion, and as long as you figure out how, you can move pretty freely through it. Ultimately though, there's always exactly one path of progression. Get the key for the next door. The main mansion contains several colored doors that you need the corresponding key for, and each of these doors contains a subset of different locked doors that you have to get through in order to complete that section and get the next colored key. Think of it as zones and levels in Mario games. You enter the green door and have to complete levels green 1 through green 6 to get the red key for the red zone, and so on. Within one zone, you have the agency to choose which level you want to play next. But once you make that decision, you are stuck unless you finish the level. There is no other way to progress. You can leave a level at any time and explore every room of the mansion that you've unlocked so far, but apart from finding story bits that you might have missed, you won't advance the game. Now, you could argue that this is the same for every puzzle game. If you want to get to level 69, you have to complete level 68. But the key factor and significant source of my frustration was that decision-making aspect. I chose this level, and if I can't solve the puzzle, I won't get my endorphins. Maybe I already would have gotten my endorphins if I had chosen another door in the green zone, or maybe I would have gotten an epiphany about a specific mirror dimension mechanic that could help me right now, but there is absolutely no way to know for sure, because I am stuck here. Leaving the level and checking out the mansion might distract me for a bit, but in the end, it's just a time sink. Again, my own frustration tolerance and limited brain capacity obviously taints my experience, but I've got another gripe that finally made me quit. Ugly explores themes of domestic abuse, violence, neglect, alcoholism, the occult, and promiscuity. Our dad is a piece of shit. Throughout the game, we try to access repressed memories of our youth and piece together what happened in the past. It's about trauma and facing fucked up realities. The story is solid enough and its presentation is creepy and atmospheric. If you ever dreamt of being rewarded for tough puzzle solving by watching horrible visions of the past and some sad and angry people yelling at you, man, this game is for you. The creepiness of the game is underlined by its audio. There's long discordant notes, moody piano music, and all sorts of ambient sounds that match the eerie feeling. The very lovingly hand-created art style matches the atmosphere perfectly. And throughout each room you will find all sorts of little secrets and animations that give you that feeling that you are not alone in this abandoned horror house. It's great. The vibes are definitely there, and if you play this game by yourself in a dark room, you'll feel something. But, and here is the biggest but of them all, there is a special room in hell reserved for whomever decided on some of the music and sound bits in specific puzzle rooms, and for the decision to loop them the way they did. By design, you are supposed to spend a significant amount of time in these rooms. The puzzles are hard, and you will struggle with the solution. You will be upwards of 5 to 10 minutes in a given room, longer if it's a tough room. I cannot fathom why you'd want to enhance this base frustration by looping some of the most annoying stuff I have ever heard. Exhibit A. I have spent over an hour in this room, trying and failing to come up with a solution. Getting frustrated by my own inability, and all this time, this is what I heard looped on like a 1 to 2 minute timer. Wait. This music is not helping. I'm sorry. It's cool to listen to for a short while, because it really fits the mood here. But if you're in here struggling with one of these puzzles and got no ideas, and from time to time she just gets in here and goes, this is not helping. Over an hour. This is where I first quit the game. But okay, maybe you are into this type of opera singing. You love arias and they give you the serene feeling of deep emotion. Hey, you do you. But let me hit you with the absolute incomprehensible. Imagine yourself, again, in a puzzle room. It's a tough puzzle with lots of steps and elements. There's a disturbing vibe in this room because of the big furnace with the baby skeletons inside and that blood all over the walls and these dismembered carcasses in the back, right where that key is at. You want to get out, but you can't because that puzzle is tough. You spend 10 minutes in here, 20, and all the while you get hit with this. Hey, you want to concentrate to solve our tough puzzle? Sure, but how about we tell you about our Lord and Savior, who and ha, while you're at it. Holy shit, this is not psychological horror to enhance the experience, and it's not a cheap jump scare. It's weird and it doesn't fit the overall care put into the game's design. It's a 6-year-old going boo while I'm trying to do my fucking taxes. This is where I quit the game for realsies. game has a real and an alternative ending that you get by solving hidden rooms. So there is some replay value here for all my completionist homies, even though this is a puzzle game. All of the puzzles stand for themselves, so you could pick this game up whenever and just get right back into the next puzzle, or maybe the puzzle you left it at last night. You'd probably need some readjusting time if you pick this game up again after like a week to reacquaint yourself with the different mechanics and tricks of the mirror dimension. But you won't have to spend 30 minutes remembering what you did last time around or where the story is at. It's easy to pick up, especially if the links of your puzzle synapses are in a better shape than mine are. So you can probably guess that I'm not exactly head over heels for this game. Ugly is clever, it's challenging, it's got a great art style and vibe and explores dark themes. If you liked Braid, you will definitely like this. It is not really my cup of tea, even though on paper it kinda should be. The frustrating and in part annoying elements of the game are too much for me to handle, so I'll put this at a 5 out of 10. If what you've seen so far interests you even in the slightest, you should definitely check this out. As far as I can tell, most other reviewers praise this as a masterpiece, so if you still got some salt in that shaker of yours left, maybe pour it in your mouth so you get your electrolytes up. You'll need them to play this. Final game for September, These Doomed Isles. The game is actually in early access right now, which I try to avoid most of the time, but since I already played the demo on June's Steam Next Fest, I added it onto the list. These Doomed Isles is a turn-based city-building survival game with a deck-building mechanic in the mix. So instead of the usual build path and tiered unlocks, you construct your village with the cards in your deck, the resources you gather, and with faith, since you actually play as a god watching over your people. If you ever played any type of settlement building game, you'll pretty much feel right at home in These Doomed Isles. You start off small with your first few people, gather resources to build new stuff, optimize your building positions, and defend against an outside threat. In this case, it's different waves of more or less mythological creatures that increase in difficulty as the game progresses. While in the early game it's gonna be like 2 lonely Vikings, later on you'll face minivan and then clown car loads of witches, imps, ghosts, sirens and raiders. In the end, there's a final boss to defeat as well. If you don't smash these guys, they're gonna smash your stuff, and it's game over. That's not the only way to lose a run though, so let's not get ahead of ourselves and start with the basics. Resources. Positioned in the top left of the UI, you can see the different resource types, how much you have of each and how much you'll gain or lose this turn. The first and most important one, your people, and the info how many of them you can actually house at the moment. Second resource is your workforce. If you got free jobs and people that aren't homeless, this number goes up. So you have to take care of your community and can't expect them to work in the mines for your own benefit, while you don't provide enough free housing, enjoyment and food like some capitalist pig. The third and fourth resources deal with exactly this management of your population. You've got the current happiness level and the amount of food supplies you have left in stock. If you run out of either of these, your people are slowly going to leave you. Reach 0 population and the game's lost as well. There is no boom and bust cycle here where you reap profits from the suffering of others. Everyone prospers or no one does. Not even the gods. The last 5 resources are what your people and buildings produce and what you build new development with. Wood, stone and iron ore are pretty obvious but need the correct production buildings and natural, or God-given, resource patches. While gold is gained through various sources like panning huts, markets or gold mines. The last resource is especially important to you, the god of this village. It's faith. It's what you use to make stuff happen, whether it's lightning bolting a goon, spawning new land masses, forests and rocks, or diving into your deck to roll for a specific card, which we'll get to right now. This is a deck building game in the most literal sense. You build your deck, and your deck is your buildings. You've got a starting hand of buildings and god powers, and every summer turning into fall, it's harvesting season, in which you get to buy and re-roll randomly chosen cards. At the beginning of your turn, one turn equals one season by the way, you'll draw your hand, and that's the options you can build with this time. You can spend faith to discard your current cards and get new ones from your draw pile, which can be repeated indefinitely as long as your pool of faith isn't drained. There's a good amount of different cards that allow for nice customization and randomness through your various runs. Some buildings, like shelters, obviously are immensely important and you need to look for them to advance, but the way you gain gold, food or other resources can differ. The same goes for your god powers. While in one run you depend on fireballs and earthquakes to defend your foes, the very next run could be focused on building up an army. Let's talk a bit about the strategy aspect of this game before we move on to vibes and replayability. Your first strategic decision is the god you choose to play as. At the moment, there's 3 gods that you have to unlock, and they all play a little differently with different powers, strategies, aesthetics, cards, and sometimes even resources. There's a Celtic god that focuses on nature powers, there's a Greek god whose mechanics revolve around statues, and there's a Mesoamerican god that adds a new noble class of citizens that can work temples for higher faith and happiness but negatively impact the happiness of the common man when they live too close to their houses. The turn-to-turn strategy varies from game to game. It all comes down to what cards you can pull in harvest season and how you can maximize those cards to advance your resource generation. There are some core goals that you obviously will want to work towards and search out the necessary cards for, like housing or food generation, but all in all, the game provides a multifaceted tool belt and card pool that offers diverse, valid tactics. You will also want to expand your buildable territory. The map is fragmented into several tiny islands that you have to connect to by Tetris minecrafting land cards towards them. You always get bonus resources for connecting a new island too and can immediately build on them. Since land cards also have limited uses though, you have to strategize if it's the island with the forests, or the one with the rocks, or maybe the one with the treasure chest that you want to approach. Okay, final thought on gameplay and strategy. You might have wondered how you actually, win in this game, and that's pretty straightforward. At the start of each run, you'll get 3 randomly chosen goals to accomplish. You might have to build 2 wonder buildings or keep happiness above a certain threshold for a specified number of turns, connect a certain amount of islands, or build a total number of buildings. You can complete these in any order, and whenever you accomplish the 3rd goal, you'll spawn the final boss. Once that guy is toast, you win. You get to level up your god, unlock new cards, and can start a new run. There is a quote-unquote story here that's presented in the intro video to the game, but it's just flavor context around the actual gameplay, which doesn't advance or fill in, let alone finish, story. We are one of many gods and we're all bored. So we decide to invent a card game and test the resilience of our followers. So far, so Faust. However, the vibes and atmosphere definitely hold up. These Doomed Isles is a colorful pixel art city builder. It's fun and bright and doesn't take itself as seriously as the bits and pieces of its story might suggest. All of the sprites and animations for buildings, peoples, enemies, as well as the artwork on the cards are well made and convey the information they need to convey. Progressing through the different seasons is satisfying and pleasing to the eyes, even though the actual map is very simplistic and there are no seasonal sprites with snow on roofs or anything like that. No seasonal sprites with snow on roofs or anything like that. It all still works though, and the generally light-hearted spirit of the game is transported through its in-game music as well. The three gods and their tribes also have separate themes. It's solid and memorable. You don't need me to tell you that a settlement survival builder has replay value in its DNA. You are supposed to play this over and over again, and if you dig the core gameplay loop, you probably will, cause it's easy to just start up another run. One successful playthrough takes about 40 minutes, so this isn't Civilization one more turn and suddenly it's 5 in the morning and you gotta get up in 3 hours commitment. It also isn't as involved as Banished or Foundation. You don't optimize build paths or multi-level production chains. You roll for cards, and based on your map layout, deck and current god, you'll make moment-to-moment strategic decisions. Again, easy to get into, not insanely hard, but also not a guaranteed win every time. The three gods also have a 10-level unlock system, so you can grind out new cards for some long-term value, and as this is an early access game, the dev homies already announced new gods and cards once the game releases for real. You know those nights where nothing in your Steam library looks compelling enough to make the actual effort of moving your tired mouse arm, heavily lifting that finger and with full commitment push that play button, so instead you just scroll through YouTube and Twitch aimlessly until you need to go to bed. These Domed Isles is perfect for those nights. Once you're in, it just works, and you can easily get out again and play once more a week from now or so. It's solid in its execution, got the right amount of challenge and decision making, but it also probably won't turn into your favorite game of all time. I give this game a solid 6.5. I like strategy and settlement games with a little bit more depth and min-max build path capability. But when brain don't be braining brainily, this is perfect to just enjoy my time with. Because it's so bright and fun, you could also play this with your kids and slowly get them as hooked on computer games and strategy as you are. We actually made it to the finish line. All the indie games I played and tested for September 23. I could have just been lucky with my game picks, but in my opinion, this has been a quality month. We've had very clever and thought out concepts, which is directly reflected in my top 3. Astrea, with its endless mechanics, combinations and replay value. Chants of Sennaar, with that very satisfying approach to linguistics and society. And Cocoon, Game of the Month, with its incredible atmosphere, multi-level world puzzles and extraordinary game design. Good stuff. Indie games, best games. Alright, final thoughts. This is my first review video of this kind and holy cow, this took so long. In the meantime, Cocoon has been nominated as Indie Game of the Year by the Game Awards, and I actually played and recorded like 90% of the footage for next month's, or, this month's video. Which is also why I can put that stuff on screen right now as a teaser. Spoiler, October has been pretty solid as well. I hope there's something on this list that helps you enhance your game time for a couple of nights and gave you a nice cross-section of September's indie releases. I am actually really interested in your feedback since, again, this is my first review, so if you got a minute, I'd appreciate your input. To all my dev homies, good luck with your projects. And to everyone, call your grandparents. They'll be happy about that.